Welcome to Travel Again Presents, the weekly travel roundup covering the headwinds and tailwinds impacting the business of travel. Please welcome our hosts, Mike McCormick and Ed Silver. Hello, Mike. How you doing?
Hello, Ed. Season 2.
Ooh, wow. Season 2 of the Travel Again podcast. We are back with episode 1. Pretty exciting, Mike.
Yeah. So we finished up season 1. Yeah, I have to say I was really really pleased to see the reaction to season 1. Build up a really nice following. Very, organically. It's not like we were out advertising or, we just kind of our network and word of mouth. And again, great following. Really happy to see how fast it grew. And even we said too, like even media was picking up on content from the podcasts, and maybe I have a theory that some of it is in the new AI world we're living in. People are finding the content in different ways too, which is really helpful to us.
Yeah.
But again, it was great with great guests, and the lineup coming in season 2. Maybe even better than season 1. We'll see, but I'm pretty excited about it. So
we'll see. Yeah. As always, every episode will go up on YouTube for our insiders who subscribe. They get first early access, and then it goes up on all podcast systems on Monday, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and little short clips on TikTok now, Mike, for the TikTok fans out there.
That's right. You got it.
All right. We have a great show, and the show flow is about the same as last year with a few twists and surprises. But, Mike, I suggest we get on to the news. Are you ready?
I'm ready, man. It's no one went to sleep over the summer. There's been a bunch of things going on in the last 30 days or so that we got to catch up on.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's plenty to choose from, but I chose what I felt like was some important things, even some things happening recently. And so let's just kick it off. Mike, Boeing went on strike. Boeing goes on strike, and it's unfortunate. They halted 737 production, and the union decided they had to strike. Why don't you give some context here and let our viewers know what your perspective is on this strike?
Well, I mean, the bigger holistic perspective to me is that this is all stuff that has to be resolved, right? That obviously Boeing's woes have been well documented in the media, and everyone is following it because clearly supply of aircraft is a vital part of the, engine that turns the engine, which is travel, right? So a lot of things kind of cascade down from there. As much as I hate to see a strike and I hate to see this going on, I mean, at the same token, I mean, it also has to get resolved if the business and Boeing is going to get healthy again. And the CEO who came in, the new CEO, Kelly, he's tackling it as best he can. I think, look, again, all things that need to be worked out so that the organization can get back to the business of, making, superior aircraft.
Yeah, I mean, one unusual thing I had noted when I was reviewing these articles, Mike, is that the CEO of Boeing, and I believe it was the new CEO, right?
Yes.
Had actually gone to the press and to the union and I don't know about the word beg, but really pleaded with them this time not to strike. Please don't strike. And I assume the union felt they didn't have a choice here.
Well, the comments from the union was we kind of have this one opportunity to kind of set things right for the long term for our workers, and if we don't do it now, we won't have an opportunity later. And maybe they're right. Again, without being in the room, we don't know. But from the outside looking in, for the industry, clearly, job one is getting Boeing healthy, making quality aircraft. Insourcing a lot of the stuff that they outsourced, which is kind of some of the fundamental part of the problem. And these are all things that have to happen. But when you're doing all those things, and you've got a lot of kind of macro issues, labor issues that are a big part of that, clearly. So again, wish them all the best in sorting it out. And we need a viable, healthy Boeing for the industry.
Okay. Thanks for that perspective, Mike. Okay. Next article I chose is about Southwest. And man, we've been talking about Southwest since before the summer, obviously through the summer break. But this time, the Southwest chairman, Gary Kelly, stepped down after activist pressure rose to a temperature that simply couldn't be ignored. What's the context here, Mike, and what does it mean for Southwest in the long term?
Well, I think, like, first off, I mean, look, I think he kind of sacrificed himself in a sense for the greater good of trying to preserve the CEO who he's had a long time relationship with, and what he thinks, clearly what he thinks is best in terms of the future success of Southwest. I think fundamentally, though, the problem Southwest has is the one that's been well documented, which is they although they've been successful and built a very successful airline over the years, the problems, the challenges that Elliot's pointed out, the hedge fund, are real, which is the fact that they don't collect the kind of ancillary fees and revenues that the others do. So it's tough for them to keep pace. And as much as you want to try to position Southwest in a sense of being this, upstart, kind of alternative airline, they're not now. They're the establishment. They're part of they're the big four. It's not, that's just the reality of the situation. They've got to find a way to balance a whole lot of things here, which is getting the revenue piece in line, taking advantage of that, but then not losing their soul and their differentiators in the process. And that's a hard thing to do. Also, as much as it's that balance of, on one hand, organizationally, they've built this terrific culture. Anyone who's dealt with them, which I have, we have many, over the years in all different ways with them as an organization, both as a customer, a partner, et cetera, et cetera. They're a terrific organization to work with. Their people are fantastic, but they also are, an organization that's breeded longevity and staying there. And they really have not had a lot of outside influences in terms of new ideas and direction. But those are the things that have to be balanced. So it's a difficult one. We need them to be healthy as well. Competition is good. We don't have enough of it in the space. So I think, again, it's one where it'll be one to watch of what will happen here. Look, at some point, Elliott is a hedge fund. They're about the money. They'll come and go if they get they get what they're looking for. That they're not there to make the airline better per se. They're there to make their investment pay off. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. But everyone will be watching it very closely. And we certainly we need them to be a healthy airline for sure.
Okay. Mike, the next one, late in the summer, the Department of Transportation launched a probe into the loyalty program of the 4 largest airlines. And I quote from the article, the investigation seeks to determine whether recent industry trends like the devaluing the worth of miles and consolidation have adversely affected consumers. So give us some context, and what do you think? Have they in some way adversely affected consumers?
Yeah. Well, look, first off and foremost, I'm always for appropriately, whether it's DOT or any agency, taking a look and keeping an eye on industries to make sure that they're using appropriate practices and how they do things. Loyalty has become a huge part of the driver of the travel business and the economies, period, not just here, but everywhere around the world. So, and points feed not only the use of travel, meaning, airlines and hotels, et cetera, but it's the whole downstream effect of what it does to local economies and all the food and beverage and everything, all that goes with the kind of long tail of all the spend and all that depends on, travel. So it's a key driver of the industry. So it needs to be done and done well. Look, the airlines are saying it's overreach. I think there's a happy medium in there where, look, companies need to be able to manage their programs the way they see fit, value, their miles and their business the way they see fit, price things the way they see fit, right? The way, supply and demand and competitively where they stand. But at the same token, there needs to be some fences, right? And I keep drawing off these examples from the past of when we were, working together at Global Business Travel Association and did lobbying and did things to do things like the 3-hour tarmac rule, no voice calls on planes, different things that are very positive for the customer. 3-hour tarmac rule. The airlines put up a big, oh, we can't do this. It's going to be expensive and disruptive, and we can't. It's like, no, it just sets a standard for the industry. Everybody follows it, and then competitively you go on your way, right? That it's not. And now, do you hear any news articles about people being stranded on planes excessively, without water, without food? No, all that went away. So, I mean, here's one where, okay, it's a bit of a stretch, talking about miles and points, but there needs to be some guidelines, the same way there is around any pricing practices, to make sure that, there's not a bait and switch. I earn miles, I earn points, and then 5 minutes later, they're devalued, right? There needs to be some guidelines on how that's done, how customers are notified, et cetera. Just common sense things. And again, the key is that, and where regulation in a sense can be healthy, is if it sets a standard that everyone has to follow, then it's not about competitively things being determined, right? One airline can't have a practice that's deceptive or bad while another one's trying to take the high road and do the right thing, right? Everybody's got to follow the same rules, and that's good. So we'll see. The devil's in the details here, because you also don't want the overreach of, DOT in the business of trying to manage loyalty programs. It's like, no, that's not the point.
No, right? but they're a currency, and so
they
in many ways they should keep a watch on what they do with a currency of this nature.
Yeah, and so again, one to follow, but again, you have to take each one of these. DOT's been very active with Secretary Pete, Mayor Pete. And good for him. Like, I want that. Like, I think that's good that he's a bright guy. Seems to be pretty level in terms of his policies and practices. When it and again, I have some good faith there that they're headed in. They're going after, kind of looking at the right things. But again, just within limits, right? Within limits for sure.
Okay, Mike. The last article I chose was more news about Apple Intelligence.
Oh, come on! I know this is your favorite one. You're
well, so here's the background. The iPhone 16s got introduced and launched, a variety of different devices, and we got to see a little more during the launch of how Apple Intelligence and travel might integrate together. I thought this was a pretty good article covering sort of the mixed reality here of the complexities of integration with travel, along with some of the powerful features that are to come. I think it's important for our readers to have context here. When the 16s land in a couple of weeks, you'll be able to get your first 16.
I know you pre-ordered
I pre-ordered mine, so it'll be here as early as one can get it. But interestingly, most of the Apple Intelligence functionality will not arrive when the phone arrives.
Right.
This is something they don't do that often. They will add these features later with software updates. Now, they always do software updates, but something this important that you can actually use when the phone lands is a little unusual. And so there is still a lot to learn about what's going to happen here. The only other thing is I would say our partner at Guy Pan, who we did a spotlight with during the summer, has covered a couple of interesting articles about AI and particular Apple Intelligence. And so there is a post on our website covering the details of what he believes, George Rukas believes, can happen once Apple Intelligence is fully rolled out, with travel. And so he's quoted in this article. And so if you want more details, there's a great detailed article on our website. This article covering the article is also there. And so I'd say more to come, but definitely one to watch, and one that, as you imagine, I find very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Mike.
And again, another one to watch is as those functionalities become real, you start looking at the impact it could have on travel planning.
Yep.
Pretty disruptive.
Look, I mean, it's at the heart and center of everything we do if you use it to its fullest extent. And so it knows an awful lot about you. No one does privacy better than Apple. And so trusting in that, along with travel functionality, could be pretty powerful. So we will keep our eyes on that. Mike, we will be right back with our guest. I want to thank our sponsor, Safe Travel RX, an app that takes the worry off your itinerary, providing travel peace of mind with emergency response components, travel security, and risk management, especially for those traveling internationally. It includes 24/7 global concierge assistance. Landed in the hospital in China, forgot your prescription, wallet stolen. Safe Travel RX is your prescription for better, safer travel. Download it today to discover the power of Safe Travel RX and reach out to them. If you have any interest in this offering, putting this tool in front of your travelers to provide them with the duty of care you're required to provide, Safe Travel RX is your prescription for better travel. Mike, any thoughts on Safe Travel RX today?
Nope, great tool. Take a look, and both from a standpoint of just as an individual user, it's great. But if you're a company that's looking to have that extension in terms of offering up a complementary product to your customer base, you should get in touch with them, because it's a no-brainer plugin, and it's a nice value add for your customers.
Very good, Mike. And now on to our guests for season 2, episode 1. Please join me in welcoming Tobias Ragge, the CEO of HRS Group. Tobias is the CEO of HRS Group. He's recognized globally as a technology pioneer, advancing the efficiency and performance of corporate travel programs via deployment of HRS's AI-infused, data-driven platform solutions. HRS's proprietary technologies are used today by 35% of the Fortune 500 and the world's most prominent hotel chains. He is the only European named to the Business Travel News' annual list of the 25 most influential executives in business travel 4 times. He has been the CEO of HRS since 2008 and is based at HRS's headquarters in Cologne, Germany. Please welcome to the stage Tobias Ragge. Hello, sir.
Hi, Ed. Hi, Mike. Nice to meet you. Great talking to you.
Thanks for coming on
your episode here. I'm looking forward.
Our season 2 intro. You are the special guest this time, so welcome to the stage. Thanks for joining us.
Sure.
So, well, again, nice intro. And I think at the same time, I mean, we've known each other, for a long time over the years. Man, I can't believe it. You took the reins. Is it now? We're 16 years ago.
Yes.
Wow, time flies. But you've really grown the business from the business you started with, which was a terrific business, innovative in its own right. More in the early heady days of going online and the early days of the merchant hotel business, and HRS now has grown and really truly expanded its scope globally and otherwise. The company's become a global leader. You still have your private company roots. Just curious, a little perspective. What would you say kind of maybe the high point, low point of all this over the years, looking back?
Well, I think the high point is that I always have the feeling the best is yet to come. So I have to say, obviously, in this journey, I mean, I've been 20 years with the company, 16 years more or less running it. And when you look at, okay, what is it that you are proud about, then I think one is always when you're able to globalize a business, creating a global culture, going from maybe European footprint to a global footprint, incorporating really a diversity of different cultures from, the US to China. I mean, that's a huge bandwidth to cover, to India, to new territories. So, I think that was a very exciting journey for me also personally. And it taught me a lesson that diversity, and I know it's a very overstretched discussion nowadays, but the diversity of different perspectives, that's what I think is diversity about. It's not about race or nations or stuff, but it's different perspectives, and they can be very culturally different in a global travel environment, which is a global industry, is very enriching. So I found it something that has given me a lot of rewards. And then on the other hand, when you think about culture and building a global culture and team belonging together, and we like to call ourselves a tribe of entrepreneurs. So people who try to do something, to create something together. Then, when you think about the creation element, I mean, yes, you said it was a big journey from an e-commerce basically business to a software as a service, B2B business covering procure to pay value propositions. I mean, we built, different platforms in the procure tech, travel tech, fintech space, and combined it all together for lodging, for meetings, for workforce travel now. So the product scope has expanded quite significantly. So that is something that is exciting for me as a product innovation person. And last but not least, and I think this is now why I'm saying the best is yet to come, although I think, future is always a challenge, is, the capabilities of technologies that we're going to see. And you covered this in your intro when you guys talked about AI, right? So how can we leverage good data? And that's why I'm so convinced for us the best is yet to come, because we were able, through covering this customer journey, procure to pay, and providing and building proprietary data also around it, that we probably can leverage the capabilities of AI in a very interesting way in the future. And I see it as a huge opportunity for growth for us. Also the capability to build through AI software much faster, automation of things. I think it's just an amazing time we're in. I think we still don't understand, where this will lead us, but I think that is something that excites me as a person who's always glass is always, half full. And that's what I really would say is the high side. Now, where's light, there's also shadow. So when talking about the lowlights of my time, I definitely would say, like probably every executive who's been in the travel industry, was COVID, right? So that was absolutely a low light. It was not just dealing with the difficulty of the situation, but also from a people perspective. I mean, you had to let people go. You had to basically destroy, if you want, teams that you're building up over all these years, because you just were fighting for survival, and that was the necessity. And I had to do certain changes, but that was really difficult, I would say. And the uncertainty of where is this going now, what's going to happen to the market. And so that was definitely, one of the lowlights. But I always like to then think about, Winston Churchill. He has a great idiom I like. He said always, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. And that is really something which, I think is probably also in anything that is bad, some opportunities there.
Well, I would say, so one of the things that, I really admire about you and your leadership is, back when we were, all going through that together, all the uncertainty at the beginning of the pandemic, and we launched the Travel Again Project to try to pull the industry together. And you were just a terrific supporter of that. You stepped up. And then we talked a lot during the pandemic, on and off. And one of the things that I really thought was fantastic about your approach is, despite all that, you took the time with your team to really go and dig deep further into the whole end-to-end process that you were talking about, the accuracy, the data, the interconnectivity of all your systems. And you kind of looked at it as, well, we're not going to have a lot of business right now. Things are going to be, and how can I engineer, re-engineer, put people to work doing things that will help us once we come out of it. And to your point about, glass half full, a lot of people were just, putting their head in the sand and just, like, what are we going to do? The world's coming to an end. I don't know. And, even leaders were, really struggling to figure out, what do I do here? And fairly, I mean, dealing with the hard issues of just how do I stay economically afloat, during this, right? And for how long? But you did that. And back to your point about now coming out, you talk about putting, AI on the front of things. Well, it's only the front of what? The data has to be great. The process has to be clean. And you spent a lot of time. And as we know, or people may or may not know, certainly our listeners and viewers that are in the hotel industry know it, but for a lot that aren't as close to it, that end-to-end process of collecting all that data, making it accurate, is no small feat. I mean, it has been the bane of the existence of the industry for the longest time. I mean, think of all the years you couldn't even get a a checkout to get a folio that had the data on it. I mean, in it for the company. I mean, they couldn't even track what people were spending. And that was not that long ago. Right. So, I mean, again, I think, just calling it out, both in terms of industry leadership, but, leadership with your company. I mean, that's a big step that now, you reap the benefits from, but is because you did that at probably the lowest time in our history of the industry. So again, hats off to you. Well, switching gears a little bit, key factors like for travel buyers today, making, what really are the drivers of the decision, and how are people largely value buyers? Are they price driven? I mean, is it sustainability? What's driving decisions today for travel buyers?
Well, I think, there has been obviously a shift in sentiment, I would say, last 2 years, especially the whole topic post-COVID. We have had all the debates about the rebound of ADRs, the rate hikes that we have seen, especially in the US market with an immense pricing power because of, the consolidated market structure. Right. Of the three big chains. European market, APAC, is much more fragmented. So, the pricing power is not as dominant in the US, but also there, I mean, everybody was coming out of COVID, took a big hit on their rates. Nobody had people to come back. Hotels were running at occupancy levels of maximum 80% because you didn't have the people to serve 100% capacity. So rates were basically going through the roof. I mean, we've seen 30-40% rate increases since then. And so cost has now become, also with the macroeconomic climate, and going down. And I think, the US, I mean, from my point of view, good news that the Fed now basically made a bigger cut in their rates by 50 basis points. There's the discussion about the recession. Looking from a European perspective, the European economy is also really sluggish right now. A lot of problems from the growth perspective in the industries, I would say. So I think the macroeconomic sentiment is more towards how can we basically now work on our bottom line? How can we drive costs down? So that is really what drives the agenda, I would say, now in the procurement organizations again. Before, I think we were talking heavily about sustainability as a new driving force, and obviously always employee experience. But I feel like now, cost has become number one talking point again. And I see also now a question on the buyer community where they're saying, okay, how can we leverage our buying power versus the more and more consolidated market structure? So convergence of also transient small meetings, groups, trying to drive that together and getting a little bit more strategic with the buying community because of also different seasonality patterns of these different product segments, different margin profiles is something that we see more and more. And I think that is a great opportunity also for travel managers to step up their profile to say, we're gonna expand our coverage from just travel into the event space, as such become a strategic partner. So I think that is really something that we have seen is really shifting. And going forward, Mike and Ed, when you ask me, I think we will have a discussion in the future about also cybersecurity and security of data. Because I think what we're always talking about AI as the enabler, and it's an amazing enabler. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big believer of the potential. But on the other hand side, also we need to understand that AI will also leverage a lot of cybersecurity threats and protecting personal data, protecting company data, where they're traveling to, who are they meeting. I think that will become more important to protect. So I think also we will have more discussions in the future about how good is the security in the data infrastructure security of suppliers in order to protect the vetted interests of the corporates and their clients.
Yeah, I mean, you think we share a lot of data through Google searches and Amazon searches today. Wait till tomorrow when you're sharing all your itineraries because you want to find out what you want to do online through these AI tools. and it's learning from all of that, right? So you're spot on to make sure you're focused on it as a company and try to get travelers, to understand the value of that data.
Well, when if I may add, sorry, Mike,
no, go ahead.
But let's also think it further, right? We're talking now about traveler IDs and how can we maybe also move away from physical passports into a more digital personality traveling the globe and all the information associated with it. So when we talk about our personal information that's being used, so I think we will all need in this industry to step up our technology capabilities and investments into these spaces. And I think also from a total cost of ownership perspective of corporations, that will drive also push for more what's integrated ecosystems rather than a lot of very small, tiny feature solutions, because it's also about how many interfaces is your corporate ecosystem accepting to work with and collaborate with. So I think the technology element will also have a big impact on our industry in this regard.
Yep.
Well, and I was going to hit on that a little bit from a competitive standpoint. Like, what does HRS do? You're in a good position because you're big enough and you have the resources to be able to make those kinds of investments over time. But my concern for a lot of the industry, our industry, is certainly the travel agency community, et cetera, you have this long tail of providers in the industry that don't have the resources to make those kinds of investments. And kind of where is that going to take the industry? I think it's always the best thing when you have a lot of consolidated, kind of market power in a handful of providers. That's just not the history of our industry. And where does this go? And question for you, like where does HRS come out in all of this, in terms of the type of company you are, how you're going to compete versus your competition? Does it change your outlook in that way?
So hopefully we come out on top, but it's
a half glass full is always it's always there.
Well, hey, look.
A good entrepreneur is paranoid on the one hand side, and he's an optimist by profession. So I think these are the two characteristics that you need to bring along. But jokes aside, I think you're spot on, Mike, and I would share your perspective here to say, okay, the progression on the technology front and the fact that basically the human servicing component will be most likely replaced more and more by machines will lead to the fact that obviously the companies who are capable of building technology at scale are the ones who are most likely going to be the winners in the future. Unless you go into very high-end, ultra-luxury niches, and there's always a niche for a very high personal touch. But I would say industry at scale is all going to be about technology. So yes, the ones who are capable of using technology, building it, are definitely, from my point of view, going to be the winners. Is it going to be the winner takes it all? I don't think so, because this industry is too global. The markets are sometimes too different. The verticals by itself are so bespoke. And that's, for example, people have asked me, okay, why don't you do what you do in lodging or meetings in the airspace? And I always kept saying, listen, we have still so many problems to solve in our core domain. And we want to keep our hats down and be the best in this domain, rather than being average everywhere and spreading too thin. And I think this is also what, from my point of view, we will be seeing. We will see, we have on the one hand side a process layer, and on the other hand side, I think we have vertical categories. And from my point of view, we'll see more of a best of breed scenario in the future for very large programs where very specialized players will need to use the power of technology and APIs and real-time data exchange and need a collaboration mindset to bring a complete new level of experience for the traveler and the corporations to the plate. And yes, this will probably leave the non-technology players behind, or the non-proprietary technology owning players, because technology is the differentiation factor, if you ask me, in the future, and capability to work with data. But on the other hand, when you think about mid-market, most likely small, medium businesses, it might not be worth to pursue right now a best of breed approach. And you're great off doing with an all-in-one approach. So my point is just, if you're not in technology, and it will be challenging, I think you need to be very clear about where to define your niche. And, to ask me, where do I see us? I mean, we are fully focused on building technology and making use of our data. I mean, when we look at our workforce today, where 60% of the workforce are all in building technology. That's all who we are. And then there's a third that's go to market, that's dealing with the customers and the supplier community. But at the end, we're building technology. And so I think, how can we, come out on top in our domain as being focused, laser focused in our domain, solving problems for the customers, and at the end being able to collaborate with the ecosystem, because I think we're entering an age of ecosystems where ecosystems need to collaborate via APIs, and we're building a niche ecosystem, and we need to collaborate with other ecosystem providers. And I think we're now coming into this, understanding that certain people are great at certain things, but not, one size fits all approach will win. That's my take on this.
I would agree. I mean, I still see my glass half full part of this for a lot of the industry is that I think you're right. If you really focus in and I travel again advisory, we work with, a number of clients around the space. And a lot of what we do ultimately in whatever role we're working on with the company ends up being kind of with that being the backdrop, like trying to really hone in on what do you do well, how do you fit into the ecosystem, and where do you see that going in terms of how does it play out for you as a company? Because to your point, you can't, the days of being kind of a jack of all trades, I'm going to, bit of everything, it kind of would sort of work in the past, but now it definitely won't, because there's just no way, the resource that's required to be, you got to be good at something or a few things and just really hone in on that. And that's just not travel. I think that's business in general anymore. I mean, just things are moving too fast. The capital requirements are too high. You find your niche. But the other part too, which I still stay optimistic about, despite all the tools and technology, the face-to-face, the customer relationship, the business building part of it is still very much a human, element. And the companies that do that well can still win. Even if they're basically renting and leasing all of the technology behind them and partnering for it. You don't have to build something to be a successful business, but you have to decide what you're going to be. You can't be all those things, right? It's tough.
Yeah, and I think, I totally agree with you, Mike, on this. I mean, at the end, yes, we are social animals and we need each other. And I think also, you could argue, do you need the travel industry, right? Because, we just sit in our home office and have our virtual identity and beam this somewhere, Scotty, beam me up somewhere. And, all of that is not needed anymore. But at the end, we're social animals. We need the personal touch, that's for sure. Also, the projection and the statements I'm making is obviously very far forward looking. Okay, so this is in the long run. Yes, sure, technology will be a huge driver in the age of AI, and that's what's needed. Nonetheless, I think if you're clear on your value proposition and your offering, personal service obviously also is it. But I could not agree more with your statement of it's all about focus. Yeah, it's all about the focus.
So switching gears a little bit, you work all the time clearly with all the hotel brands out there, in all different ways. You've got this huge global database of hotels, rates, information, relationships, information that's fundamental to your business. What do you see changed, if you compare now to, as we do many times, to pre-pandemic, but just kind of looking over the last 5 years or so, before and after, what with the hotel brands, properties, what's different, what's changed for them, what's kind of clearly the nice thing is now ADRs are up, business is good, but they're kind of back to a healthy environment again. But what's their mindset these days? What's the what are the priorities from a hotel perspective, hotel brand perspective, when they're working with you?
Well, I think the first question I think a hotel brand is trying to answer is who do we need to be for our owners, investors, and the people who are basically signing up to become a franchisee of the brand. And so, first and foremost, I think the industry has been hard hit with loss of talent. Brain drain has been immense. And quite frankly, in order to get people back after the pandemic, rates and cost of labor went through the roof, right? So that is why there's a big demand for how can you help us as a property owner to digitize, automate part of the guest experience, because we just don't have the hands anymore that did a lot of the jobs in the past on the one hand side. So that is, I think, is something that's about also the opportunities when it's the question, you as a franchise partner, why are you joining a brand? Then you want to join a brand because of the distribution, branding, capabilities, and also you're hoping for them to bring through their loyalty programs a guest into your rooms, and that's why you're paying the royalties and the distribution fees. And so it's a lot is about your branding power and the distribution reach, and that's why there's huge investment also on the hotel group side in rebuilding their technology infrastructure. Because this is also an industry like the airline industry where the back-end systems have been built in the 70s, right? If you think about, the large chains, Marcha for Marriott, super huge systems, but, systems that have been built 50 years ago. And so this is why all these big players have made or are making huge investments to rebuild the entire back-end infrastructure, to reduce the complexity of the different versions of PMSs, in order to also enable better insights into data, less complexity costs, and leveraging that personalization and merchandising capabilities. And so, we will see that a lot of this attribute-based selling, as we call it in the industry, and you could call it NDC of hotel distribution. It's just another word.
Don't call it that, though. Think of something else.
I'm just thinking about the people listening to us who might not be familiar with the term ABS and what it stands for, but it's exactly this, right? It's about personalization capabilities, merchandising capabilities, and ultimately also monetization capabilities for the supplier community. And so there's massive investments going into this. Next generation of systems are being deployed. I think we see across all these large brands big deployments, and so we can expect much more out of that capability, I would say, which will mean also more automation, and that's really what's at the core of their thought process. And yes, if you talk to them, they're also thinking about how can we reduce distribution costs. No wonder, right? It's a big chunk of the P&L of the owner community, and that's where they also get a lot of interest from the owner community if you can do a better job on distribution costs, and that's why massive investments we're seeing there. And I think also we're seeing not just on the transient side, but also the meeting sides getting quite a lot of investment on the back end side of things, because this has been also a super offline-ish topic. It's a huge market. Little consolidation so far, so big business opportunity, and I think so we see now massive online push there, and next 3 years we'll see completely different ecosystem there.
But will those investments at the hotel level trickle down to distribution systems like yours, or will they be kept locked in for the direct.com, which we've sort of seen the battle on the air side, which is why we react negatively to NDC. Much of that functionality has not made it through the distribution channels yet. Do you believe you'll get the benefit of it?
Yes, I strongly believe so. And the reason is the market structure. When you think about now a US brand just operating in the consumer segment or small medium business market, you could argue that it is something you can keep for the brand.com, because that market is a domestic market. And I can clearly work throughout the US with one of these large brands if I want, because of their just ubiquity of their offering. If I now go outside of the US market, let's say Latin, Europe, APAC, I need a much bigger distribution reach because of the fragmentation of this market. We're not talking about an industry that, in the airline industry, has 200 airlines, is 95% of global supply movements. Lodging industry is 600,000 units, of which only 25% are affiliated with brands. Yeah. So it's a completely different marketplace. And when you now think about large corporations, and that is our target audience, that's our sweet spot where we operate, they're going global, they're going all over the place, and they want a wide choice, and they're not just happy with one or two or three brands, and they need everything. And I think the brands on the other hand side are saying, listen, we are acknowledging your capabilities are more than just distribution and travel booking. You guys are offering a procure to pay end-to-end value offering that we can operate across all of the suppliers. And as long as we as their partners are, good partners, which means we provide volume at good cost, and we're sharing data, which is basically enabling everybody to create that experience. Yeah. That is when you're creating, a harmony. And so that's why I'm saying I would 100% agree if we were an OTA, then it would be definitely so, like in the airline space. But because we're not, I think, no, we will work in harmony well together.
Nice.
It's just, it's kind of a glass half empty and half full comment at the same time. But, it's certainly in the airline space and even what we're describing, the hotel equivalent, the customer really hasn't seen anything yet, any real benefit, at all. I mean, and in the industry, we've talked about it, investment. Yeah. But man, it in terms of seeing tangible results, we're still a good bit off. I mean, it's a long road to get there, seemingly a lot longer than I think everybody thought. One of my worries is a little like you get there and the customer, ultimately the traveler, the corporation, ends up having kind of a lukewarm or negative reaction, meaning that, all this personalization, all this kind of fragmentation, harder to compare, I'm getting stuff thrown at me all too much. I can't sort through all of it, and I have too many options and too many. It's almost like I think it might take a while to find that right lane where it works. And Ed, you've said it multiple times. I mean, man, we'll find that out after literally a lot of capital investment, millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, and hundreds of millions of dollars and more spent to get there.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see. I don't know that I think there's been very little actual customer testing to see what people really want. I think it's just an assumption that everybody's going to want all this choice, but that's a very supplier driven focus.
Yeah, I think, it's a really noteworthy comment you're making, and makes me want to respond to it quickly. So, because I agree with you, first and foremost, why is that being built? Because obviously people want to sell more business, okay? And more choice means more upselling opportunity, means more monetization capabilities on the one hand side. On the other hand side, choice paradox on too much choice. Okay, you can unbundle fares to the utmost degree and have all kinds of options is something that is putting a consumer and a client definitely off. And I think the power will be, how are you able to identify and understand the cohort of the customers and their personal behavior to just spoon feed them the stuff that's interesting for them, and figure out from all the choice that might be offered how to do this. And I think that is also where, from a corporate perspective, there's a big opportunity, okay? There's a big concern and threat in the industry, as I know from the corporate buyers. But I always say, guys, it's a huge opportunity, because when you think about it, you have travelers who are happy travelers. They are in the loyalty program anyway. They get certain benefits for free. If you were to able to understand this, and you don't need to buy as a corporation these freebies anymore, but they are part of the corporate distribution mix, you can add value by cutting costs, by getting benefits that they already have access to anyway. On the other hand side, for also, I would say, for the supplier community, if we or others as bringing the customers can tell them what these individuals want and can help them to construct fares that are really towards that need, I think that would serve a huge value, because you could reduce the choice paradox to the utmost degree. But yes, you're right, to get there, that is the hard part, and that is still, that's still a journey. But I'm, as I said, my glass is half full. I think we will get there, but it's still a journey.
In other parts of retail, Mike, this is proven out a bit, where it's, don't show me 300 pairs of yoga pants, only show me the 3 that fit my tush the best. And so in other areas, it has worked. In travel, I think you're right, still to be seen.
Yeah.
Well, we put you to the test, and you still stayed with a glass half full. So
yeah,
you did pretty well. So now we're going to do our season 2 wrap up question. This is an easy one. So what's your guilty pleasure when you're on the road? I know you travel extensively all over the world, obviously, to run your business. What's your what do you do? What's your guilty pleasure when you're out there?
So I have one thing I do is connected to exploring the city. So I like to stroll through a city at night. So to just explore it, walk around. I like the big city lights on the one hand side, but you're by yourself exploring it and getting a grasp for how the city behaves a little bit. And on the other hand, I'm a foodie, so I have to admit I just came from a trip from Japan, and it's actually a country of amazing cuisine and culture. And so I really have to say my guilty pleasure is I'm a gourmet when it comes to eating food. So I tend to go to the more expensive restaurants and spend my money on stuff like this. It's a little hobby of me, and I have to say, I need to then make sure the workout the next morning is happening. Because the food is good.
Well, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate your time and your insight.
Thank you. So thank you, Tobias Ragge. Tobias is CEO of HRS Group. It is wonderful to spend time with you. Best to you and your family.
Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you very much, Ed. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Mike, we will be right back with headwinds and tailwinds.
Yeah, so I wanted to take a minute and talk about a new product we have here at Travel Again called Travel Again Spotlight. We did our first Spotlight with Gaipan over the summer. It was kind of an introductory one, and the response was really terrific, immediate, strong. Came back with not only great response to the content, which happened to be all about AI, which we just talked about a good bit, woven in through our interview here at start of season 1, but also it received media coverage, meaning we had media accessing, using the content, quoting the content, which I thought was terrific, and given, George Rukas, our longtime friend and partner, he's done a terrific job. I mean, for those that don't know, I mean, he went off literally for a year and went deep dive study off the grid, to really understand a lot that he's now, helping customers and helping the industry better understand around AI. But for a Travel Again Spotlight, it's basically, we do a 7 to 10 minute interview format. We focus on the company or the brand or the leadership in terms of their product, their offering, what they do. We produce it, and it gives us a great chance to dig deep with a company specifically, and then we put it out through our influencer network, which is growing every day. So it's a great product and a nice one, complementary to our podcast. And so if you're interested, just reach out to us. You can, our contact info is pretty simple. It's just travelagainadvisory.com. You can go, you can email us, we'll be in touch, and we can sort something out for you to have an opportunity to do it. But terrific product, something we're really proud of, and I think will also help, create, again, great content, more content for the industry, which is always needed.
All right, Mike, thank you. And now we will wrap with headwinds and tailwinds, where we identify what we think is adding value to travel or taking it away. Mike, I'm up first today with my tailwind. I saw that Hotel Engine has raised $140 million more in funding, and they are moving from the name Hotel Engine to Engine. That means that they are now valued at $2.1 billion. And I just love action. If you know me, I love action in the space. This is tremendous action, $2.1 billion valuation, great for a startup out of Europe, and just great for the team there to raise more money. They'll spend it on technology. They're going to move from primarily hotel to Engine, where they will, drive travel across the board. I love to see it. I love to see a startup winning in the space. And so I wish them the best of luck and just love to see the action in the space. 2.1 billion valuation. Congrats to them.
So if they go public or do another round, will they change their name to just E?
No. I don't know. I like Engine. I think Engine is a pretty cool name.
It's actually cool because it's counter to the more complex and it's harder and harder to find a name. But they actually went the other way, which was I just thought it was just really
that's my win. That's my tailwind.
Great to see investment always in travel, right?
Yeah.
Anytime valuations are high and money's coming in, it's good for everybody, honestly.
All right.
Tailwind is just, again, this issue that keeps coming up, rears its ugly head occasionally. I think is coming up again, seems to be getting more momentum, which is disturbing, which is the attempt to try to change the way credit cards in fact charge their merchant fees back to merchants and to the way, and it's basically the money that any merchant pays for the credit card processing with the banks and the large providers. The attempt in Congress is, and it's a bill that's kind of surfaced a few times, few different iterations, it's still hanging out there, is an attempt to regulate that, and in doing so will really change the whole economic formula for banks, and then ultimately for what you get back for all these points and miles that we earn and as customers, which in turn fuels so much of the travel industry. And it's a whole economic formula that works for everyone. It works for the customers, for the travelers. It works for ultimately the merchants. It works for the economy. It's the key driver and it's like one of those, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And here it is. Here we are in a situation where this legislation keeps coming up, and it's one that we really need to keep an eye on as an industry. It could be absolutely devastating. And so I put it out there as maybe it's not a headwind that is here, but it's out on the horizon enough that I think it's one we got to keep an eye on and pay attention to. So again, hey, look, as with everything, right? We'll there's always new threats and new challenges for our industry, but we keep weathering them, and it's what makes our industry great.
All right. Thank you, Mike, for that. And that is our show. Thanks again to our sponsor, Safe Travel RX. Reach out if interested in the spotlight, and we will see you back here again in 2 weeks. Thanks, Mike. It's good to see you.
Great to be back for season 2.
Season 2. Thanks, everybody.